born here in Marks?
I was born here in Marks, and I've lived here all my 75 years. I was born out on the place. We had a farm, and when Mother and Daddy married, they redid a tenant house across the bayou from my father's parents, and we lived there till I was 2. Then we moved to town, and I've been living in this same neighborhood the rest of my life.
What was it like growing up in a small town?
Well, there's nothing quite like it, and I really don't know how to explain it, but there's a lot of freedom. You had friends that you fought with, but you cared about. You fight for them. We were not a gang, but we had a group in our neighborhood that just played together all the time. We did not have access to museums or anything like that, so we made our own fun. My grandfather had a barn that was no longer used for stock, and he let us have that for a playhouse. And he said one day he went out in the backyard and started counting kids. He said he counted 27, and he didn't know how many dogs there were. But growing up, it was a free time. We could do things. We didn't have to worry about somebody breaking in the house. We didn't have a lock on our house, a key to a lock anyway, until I was grown. Just, I don't know, growing up in a small town in that era had many advantages that they don't have today. And then that one thing was that we had to make our own fun, to make our own play. And we did. It was a good time to grow up. Much better time than today, I think. Everybody has locks and protective systems now that we didn't dream we'd ever have.
Shootings in Jonesboro.
Yes, we had access to guns if we'd ever wanted them, I guess, but it never occurred to us to shoot anybody. Or really, not to shoot unless Daddy was there. And he would take us shooting. He taught us how to shoot. He taught us how to hunt. Because he thought we ought to know. It's just part of growing up in a small community. But shooting somebody was just, you did not do that. You still don't do that if you have any sense.
What about college? What was your college education?
I went to Blue Mountain College. It's a small Baptist-owned school up in northeast Mississippi. And I'm sure that the real reason I went to Blue Mountain was because my great-grandfather had founded Blue Mountain. And my grandfather, I was the oldest grandchild, my grandfather insisted that I tried, and I loved it. I still have friends from Blue Mountain days that I keep up with after all these years. And I don't know, there are things about Blue Mountain that will always be part of me. I was not an outstanding student. I had a lot of fish to fry, and I fried them. And I don't know, I quit Blue Mountain before I graduated. And later, in my old age, I used to tell folks when I was 46, I went back to school at Delta State because I could commute. And within a year, I got my bachelor's degree, and 2 years later, I got my master's degree and worked full-time all that time.
What was your bachelor's and master's?
I have 54 college hours of art and enough hours in social science to have a minor. Something I didn't want to do, but they insisted that I do that. Some advisor along the way.
Advisor. Where'd you get your master's in?
Library science. Education in library study. An education degree with the library science emphasis is actually what it is. But it's called a master's in library science on my department.
What'd you do after college?
Well, when I dropped out at Blue Mountain, I farmed with my daddy for a while. And then I started doing anything there is to do about a house from plumbing up. There are very few houses in this town that I have not worked in at one time or another, either hanging wallpaper or fixing the plumbing or putting down a floor or doing something about it. The first whole big house I ever did was James Mack's house down on the river. It's the Van Stone house now. That's the first one I did complete. And, well, I did your grandmother's house twice.
That's what Mom told me.
Over a period of time.
That's what Mom told me. When did you start working at QC?
When I got my bachelor's degree in 1970. I mean, I started in the fall of 70. I got the degree in the spring of 70. And I worked there for 17 years, and I decided since I was going to be 65 the next fall I would retire, and I have not regretted it 1 minute.
Did you enjoy it?
My retirement of the school.
The school.
Oh, I love the children. I still do. They come to see me, and I run into them everywhere, and we visit back and forth, and I like a lot of the teachers, those that I knew, you know. I was the librarian down there, and I didn't have to do a class work or something. We had a nutty professor come down there one time, and he made me do lesson plans for the library, something I've always thought was crazy, but I did it.
Okay. When did you become interested in the Indians?
Well, I've always, you know, we've always farmed. And we've always picked up 2 or 3 pieces of arrowheads and things like that, 2 or 3 artifacts and over the years. But when I really went nuts over this was while I was at Delta State. I had to have 6 more hours of art to get a degree from there. You have to have something in your major. And I took ceramics and learned how to use the potter's wheel and things like that, and I really loved what I was doing. But part of my project for my advanced ceramic class was to take Indian artifacts, potsherds, and do a display of what I thought they would be and do some pottery like that. And I don't know, picking up potsherds was fine, but the stuff that went along with it I found a little more interesting and just lost my marbles over it. And somewhere along the line, somebody gave me a membership in the Mississippi Archaeological Association. And I am an active member still. I have a lifetime membership in it now because I liked it so well that year that was a present that I decided I have to be a part of this. And at one time, I served as the Northern Vice President of the association, and I was president of the North Delta chapter of the association. We met in Clarksdale for more than one time. But I don't know. I think it's important, and the more I study the Indian artifacts, the surer I am that there is a page of history that has not been written. And that if we go on plowing under all of this information that the plows bring up, someday we'll be sorry if we don't save it. Because someday somebody's going to come along and know a lot more than we know today and be able to translate what we have and tell us what it was used for, things that we would never dream. Maybe tell us a little more about the people who used it. I don't know. But I just firmly believe it must be saved. And it's not a holy mission to do that, but that's really the reason that I keep doing this. Because